That's right, it's playoffs in the LCS. My name is Eric. Welcome into the League on Lock studios, and it's time to preview a couple of juicy quarterfinal matchups in the LCS. EU gets things started on Friday with Splyce taking on ROC and H2K, both two teams that really just snuck into the playoffs. Not the teams you were expecting, but here they are. They're both probably coming in as pretty big underdogs. But let's look at that Splyce and ROC matchup first. These guys played twice earlier on the split like every other team. They went 1-1 in their head-to-heads, and the first time they met up was early on in the split when Splyce was looking like a totally different team. They did not look in sync. Niski was really struggling in that mid lane, and ROC, we saw how great a start they had to the split, jumped out to a 3-1 record. They were near the top of the standings, so Splyce was one of the victims early on there. And then the second time they played, it was just Baron Steel City, but it was actually ROC who had a pretty sizable lead in that matchup, and they probably should have won it as well, but Splyce just came in and started stealing a bunch of Barons. Xerxes on the Zac was an absolute animal, taking a bunch of Barons away from that one. But I mean, really, it could have been 2-0 ROC in the regular season series, but I still got to think Splyce is a pretty heavy favorite in this one just because of how they closed out the last really 4 weeks in the EU LCS. They looked like a real top team. You saw them almost perfect game G2. I know they lost in the tiebreaker for that bye, but I mean, they still looked like a very solid playoff team, and ROC really fell off a lot in the second half of the split. So Splyce probably going to be a bigger favorite in this matchup. And it is the 3-6 matchup, so that's kind of what you would expect. The key matchup for me in this match has got to be in that top lane between Ottawamne and Prophet. Both these guys, you see there, 6 solo kills. That's tied for the most of any top laners. So they're left on an island a lot of the time, not super high kill participations. So really, it's going to be this 1v1 matchup. Maybe a jungler comes in for a bit of influence, but whoever comes out ahead here and really can influence the rest of the map, whether with a TP or just forcing attention with their split pushing, is going to be pretty decisive in who comes away with this one. I know the meta's kind of shifting more towards tank top laners, but something like Kummel is still an absolutely busted champion. And yeah, we're looking at these guys. Ottawamne had struggled so mightily early on in the split. That's why his KDA is still so low. It's just because of the first 4 weeks of the split. He was not doing so hot, but he definitely came into his own in the second half of the split. I got to give him a slight edge, maybe only like 55-45, 60-40 at most over Prophet. Prophet's actually looked pretty solid for ROC, and their solo laners have been their strength this split, whereas Splyce, it's been more of a weakness. It's kind of been an opposite. The bottom lane for Splyce has the huge advantage in this matchup. Solo laners, you could maybe say go more so in the favor of ROC, but I do like Ottawamne in that top lane matchup, and I think it's going to be a pretty deciding factor in this matchup. I think Splyce is going to take it maybe 3-1. I don't see this one going to 5 games. I think Splyce, to close out the split, proved that they were a better team. I gave them maybe 65-35 odds in this one, and Splyce takes it 3-1. Saturday matchup, you've got Vitality taking on H2K. Vitality had quite a roller coaster season, had their crazy start. Everyone was saying, this team's going to MSI, Jizuki's MVP, best Western mid. Then they went on a 4-game losing streak, and everyone was like, oh, this team's overrated. They're not even going to make playoffs. But then they bounced back, and here they are in playoffs as the 4 seed. And they got to think that they are favorites over H2K coming into this one. I mean, the first time these guys played was the very first week of the split, so Vitality came away with the win there, but that was a totally different looking H2K lineup. You still had Kadro playing, you had Centaurn in the jungle, and obviously that was when H2K was looking like a pretty god-awful team in that lineup, so you can't really look to that game at all. Obviously, Jizuki got a quadra kill, he looked great on Rise, fantastic, but the second time they played was with this new lineup with Shook and Selfie for H2K. It was actually their first week with that lineup where they went 2-0. H2K came away with the win, and they looked like a very solid team that was in the midst of the Vitality losing streak. So this might actually be closer than people initially thought. I did not think H2K would be one of these teams to scrap out a playoff spot, but here they are, and they are looking much better with this lineup. As we've seen, they've been able to beat some solid teams. Selfie's finally getting the opportunity to showcase his talents on the LCS stage after kind of being stuck on challenger squads and not being able to play in the big leagues, but he's really showcasing what he can do. And Shook is just so much more proactive than Santorin was in the jungle for H2K. So they look totally different, and it'll be much closer than that first game they played in the split will dictate. The key matchup coming into this one has got to be in that bottom lane. Mini Trupax and Sheriff. Sheriff has been fantastic. Both these guys, rookies by the way, put up fantastic performances this split. Sheriff is far and away the main carry for H2K when it comes to the late game. Vitality relies a little bit more on the likes of Jizuki in that mid lane. So this matchup's going to be huge. You see the laning numbers here, the CSD at 15, Mini Trupax stronger in lane, that Vitality bot lane in general, stronger in lane. So they're going to have to try and shut down Sheriff, not let him get rolling, because that is going to be the key win condition for H2K, is to get their AD carry rolling. You've seen him dominate some of these late game team fights on a plethora of different champions. Both these guys still putting out over 30% of the team's total damage, so they can both carry a game hands down, as you saw Mini Trupax on something like the Jinx, and he's got a wide champion pool, champion ocean, as they say, in that AD carry position. But definitely whoever's coming out ahead in the laning phase in this matchup is going to hold pretty big implications on how the set is going to go. There's also some other interesting matchups. Obviously, Jizuki and Selfie. Anyone Jizuki plays against is going to be a very interesting matchup. But I think H2K relies more on their AD carry to take over games than Vitality does, because they have Jizuki in that mid lane. Overall, I still got to think Vitality is a favorite in this matchup. We really don't know what either of these teams are capable of in terms of best of series. On Vitality, they got 3 rookies. I know they played in some best ofs to actually qualify for the EU LCS in Giants, but we'll see what they're capable of. They seem to overcome a bit of tilt after their 4-game losing streak and were able to rebound. So I think they can take this one. Much like the first set, I think it goes 3-1 in favor of Vitality. I'm still not going huge favorites. I'll probably go 70-30. I guess that's actually pretty substantial. 70-30 in favor of Vitality, and they take this one 3-1. The EU quarterfinals, maybe not as interesting as they are in NA, but it's going to be these semifinals where things really get going in EU. But make sure you're checking out these playoffs. They start on Friday. Splyce taking on ROC. It's still going to be a dandy of a time.